I don't know
I'm
where it
like,
went.
wow.
We didn't move it. Oh, sure you did.
No, I'm all good. I'm all good.
Good afternoon, Kevin. I guess let's just start with, the way this ended and with the vision that you must have had as you were putting this together. And, you go all the way back to, the start of the 2018 Western Conference. You've got this Central Six, and they've learned a lot of lessons. And then the additions you made, and to have it end the way that it has. What frustration, disappointment, anger?
I think the word that comes to mind is incomplete. It's something here that we have to process, and that's part of part of the timing here right now is talking to all the players. I still have a bunch to to talk with and go through, and their comments are very thoughtful and still probably incomplete as well, because it's only 48 hours since since we the series ended. I think there's lots of soul searching in their minds that I think they still need to do. A bunch of guys, we talked about, let's maybe reconnect in a couple of weeks here and talk further, since it's all still pretty fresh in their minds, and a lot of guys talked about again the process of what they need to go through for the summer, and how do we get better? How do individually do they get better, and then think about what collectively as a group they can. It is something, again. We talked about reaching 110 points is something that they should be proud of, but to a man they're all talking about, but they still wanted more, and that's that's what they're all going to have to think about, and we're all going to have to think about as an organization. We all have to find a way, how can we be better? That whether it's the players, myself, this is what we challenged. We, one thing that again, this organization, we talked about it when we made the commitments to the guys at the beginning of the year. We want to win, and it hurts. I can't tell you didn't get emotional after after the series. It's you're in it with these guys, and you feel for them. You feel for the organization. I definitely feel for the fans.
What was it like for you to watch your Jennings winning team give up so much?
Well, again, I guess it shows you that the playoffs are a different animal, and I think that from our perspective. I think, again, you have to be prepared to try and play any different way, to obviously be successful. The other team has got, talented players. Us sitting here saying it was all about us would be a disservice to the fact of what kind of great players and great team and well coached and well managed, and the organization that we matched up against. But I think, back even when we talked about when we made the trades at the trade deadline, and obviously that is, you've done nothing. Until you're the team standing there at the end, you've done nothing. And it's, the onus is on everybody to, within the organization, to try to find a way to be that 10% better.
A lot of players talked about not enough intensity and that they never came close to playing their best. What does that tell you about this team's makeup and how much fixing it needs?
Well, I think... you stand up here and you're asked to articulate things and put things into words or put things into labels, and then everyone then interprets what those labels mean to them. The labels may not necessarily mean the same thing to a player. Like as an athlete, I think intensity, it's making that right decision at the right time. It's cutting things off 5 feet before, being 6 inches in the right place. Like it's attention to details. That gives you that intensity too. So it's, I would never. I could stand here and look you straight in the eye and say I didn't think this team, ever gave up or was lack of effort or anything like that. And and I'm not just BSing you here. Like this group cared. This group, gave it every single day. I watched them practice. I watched them, more so even what they do off the ice. But at the end of the day, You know, you've got to find more, or else, you know, that's what this game is all about. So whatever those words mean to that player, or the individual players, it's you got to find more, you know, if you want to be a champion.
I suppose you could make an argument if a team quits, there's potentially more in that team. It just wasn't extracted. If a team gives everything that they have, and at the end of the day, it's just not enough. What does that suggest to you? Does this suggest that, you know, changes need to be made?
Yeah, so, you know, I think, you know, for us, obviously, you know, there's going to be changes. Changes are inevitable, you know, every off season, whether you want them to happen or you don't want them to happen. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's changes maybe you don't want to have happen, but sometimes they're changes that you do. So that's obviously there. But for us, you know, and I think, you know, they weren't just idle words when we talked about this group needs to play a certain way to be successful. And, you know, and I think a lot of teams are like that. Like, you know, they have to play a certain way. And if there's, you know, a deviation of it, or whether another team, you know, is successful in knocking you off of that, you know, then, you know, those are things that, you know, you have to try to, you know, understand. And, but again, it's going to be a period of time where there's going to be lots of reflection. I don't have all the answers here right now. I don't think the players have all the answers here right now. You know, and I like I say, I do know that several of them we've talked about, you know, having some conversations as we continue to go, because I think they'll, you know, they're going to be more thoughtful of you know, where things were, you know, during this series.
Rick bore the brunt of, you know, not getting the team to where it needed to be. How do you evaluate that, and is he back next year?
Well, I haven't had that chance to have a conversation with the coaches. We'll, whether it's individually with Rick or collectively, you know, from with the coaches, you know, about anything. Yesterday was an off day for, you know, for those guys as well. And you know, we're going through all the players here today. You know, Zinger's not here; he's in Europe. But you know, Larry Simmons and myself are talking to, you know, with the players, like I say, still going through that process. Hopefully I'll meet with, you know, Rick and or the coaches tomorrow and go from there. But from a job that they did standpoint, you know, I think they did a great job. You know, like, there's certainly going to be areas where they're going to be self-critical, and you know, we have to be self-critical, you know, whether it's consistency on the, you know, on the power play or the penalty kill. You know, last year I think we were 7th. This year we're 21 or 22. You know, like, why? You know, so those are questions that they're going to be asked, and those are questions that, you know, again, you know, you're searching for answers for. But you know, there's lots of good things that happen too, and you don't want to sit here and, you know, on garbage bag day and you know, trumpet, you know, all those things because you wanted to win. But I think that, you know, we instilled a structure that, you know, showed that it could win, that you could win with it. You know, we put up regulation wins, which in this league is a difficult thing to do. You know, and just, you know, again, there was a level of consistency for a long period of time that, you know, you sat there and, you know, you could hold yourself to that standard during a season. You know, the period of time where, you know, there was lots of things going in the right way with respect to, you know, systems and structure and the way it looked. And you hope that that's what lays the foundation, you know, for the rest of the season. But unfortunately, we got out of that structure, and you know, for whatever reasons, you know, we couldn't find our way to get back to that structure fast enough.
Just last one for me. You got a few UFAs that you may or may not deal with, depending how it goes. But Brenden, Dillon in particular, he said that he was frustrated that maybe he wasn't sitting there with a contract and not having to worry about it. This team has prided itself on or the organization of wanting to get guys that want to be here. Yep. Is there a reason why maybe he's not?
So,
with a new
you know,
contract?
and you look at it, and we looked at, we talked long and hard about it, you know, within the organization here. We have, you know, on the back end at that point in time before the trade deadline, you know, we have 2 guys that are very, very important to this organization, in Brenden, Dillon DeMello, both guys that, you know, we would like to have back, both guys that, you know, I think are big parts of this team. But we also had something good going with respect to, you know, the group and the team atmosphere and everything like that. And one of the big biggest fears, and we're living in a salary cap world, is you don't know what you don't know. And if we started negotiations with one and got them done and couldn't get the other one done, we're here to win a cup. We're here to try to to push this team. We didn't want to deviate from what we had built, within that room. We communicated with their agents in both of those, situations that, it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when, and the when just wasn't at that point in time. And then at the trade deadline, you make some trades for a couple of other, UFAs as well that, potentially factor into the equation as well. So, Monahan and Toffoli are obviously, great veteran players, and both in that, that period of time of their career. Now, having said all that, we've signed, obviously, with Helly and Scheif, the extensions, they'll kick in. That you have to be mindful of that. We were able to get Toffoli with 50% retention. Those things you kind of forget as the summer goes on, as to the benefits of the trade deadline and stuff like that. And obviously Monty's contract, he was coming off unique situations and circumstances where it was an undervalued contract for what he brings to the table. So those all have to be factored in. But we're going to sharpen our pencil, and we'll do what we can.
I was going to ask Kevin on the topic of Sean Monahan. I mean, the second line center was a storyline in training camp. I think we thought maybe Gabe Vilardi, Cole Perfetti might be in the mix, and Vlad obviously moved up to play there. Yeah. And then Sean was brought in and obviously filled that role. So would he be a guy that you would have some conversations with? And if not, that's still an area that you might have to address at some point here? Yeah,
so I did have a brief conversation with his agent as well, a couple weeks into him being here. And you want to see, I think a player wants to see where they fit and see how they feel, and and obviously again, those conversations were good, and I kind of alluded to the fact that we have several other defensemen as well that are kind of in that situation right now where we want to try and keep them all, and the good thing is the conversations of the desire to want to try to make it work, that was there, and that was evident in the in the meetings that we had today, and again, we'll start working on that. The business side of it does start picking up, as soon as you have that last exit meeting. So
it's often said NHL's not a developmental league, and it can be a tough league for young players. And when a team is deep and going well, as you guys were, I just want your thoughts on a couple players. Cole Perfetti, obviously, he stays healthy.
Which is first and foremost
right,
important.
And career highs offensively. But obviously, when the playoffs start, there wasn't a role for him until the final game of the year. So just your thoughts maybe on his development and usage. And then a guy like Ville, who obviously looked like he was going to crack the opening night roster and ended up not playing a single game with the Jets. Just your thoughts on those.
Yeah, so there's some double-edged swords there with respect to what you hope for and what ends up happening. I think the first part of it is obviously Cole had a great year, and like I say, for him, you can tell that obviously he worked hard in the summer, to get to the point where he was healthy, and that was good. So that's important. The hard part about my job, I guess, here is weighing the pros and cons, at a trade deadline as to what you should or shouldn't do, and obviously, at that trade deadline, Gabe Vilardi's hurt, not necessarily sure as to what that outcome could be, and you have to make some decisions. You're they call it a deadline for a reason. That's it. So unfortunately, sometimes there's unintended consequences of those kind of things. Now, again, that's the nature of the game, and you make those decisions and you go. The double-edged sword of it is if it goes back to even a guy like Ville, is part of the reason you have success as an organization is you can stay healthy. And you look at years past, and I think that's kind of a little bit of a theme that even some of the guys talked about this year, why it stings that much more. Not that last year didn't sting, but in that room we knew that Scheif wasn't coming back until maybe third round. Same with JMO. We knew that those guys, we maybe not said it out to you guys, but we knew that they were done, and I think that mentally, or done for till really late in the playoffs, and that mentally was hurting for those guys. This year we went in healthy, and outside of Morgan Barron, everybody stayed healthy until obviously down the stretch here, and losing Dilly, that's an emotional loss, certainly in that regard, and the way we lost him was an emotional thing, as well. Same with Vladdy. It's there's a deep care for those guys that amongst their teammates and amongst each other that, it's one thing to pull a groin, it's one thing to even break a bone, but when, those things kind of happen, that hurts, that hurts the family.
Kevin, what are some of the impactful things that you heard from your players already that sort of get your wheels turning as to what your direction might be for the offseason and your decision making?
Yeah, so, again, I think they all understand, they know the business side of the game. They know we have, some UFAs to deal with. We have some RFAs to deal with. So they don't get into that, so much. But, again, I think, again, this group liked each other, believed in each other, is something that, the common themes, they know that the cap is a zero-sum game, with respect to how you have to, manage it and stuff like that. But again, the common theme is from the leaders and from the guys that is like, we need to push each other. Like, not only during the season, we need to push each other now in the off season here. We need to, tell each other, like, here's what I'm doing. Maybe, this is working for me. This isn't working for me. We need to come back 10% better, everybody, somehow, or 1% better, or 5%, but we need to come back. And that's the work that you do, during the summer is really where you lay that foundation.
And you mentioned that you'd be meeting with Rick and the coaches potentially tomorrow. How long a process do you anticipate it to be, figuring out Rick's future with the club option in place?
Obviously, I'm not putting any timetable on anything there. Again, it's an emotional time for everybody here, an emotional time for them. Like, we'll have those conversations, and we'll kind of update from there.
Earlier you said there's a certain way that this team needs to play to be successful,
Yeah.
and I recognize that tone from my dad when I've been, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I just wonder emotionally what I guess what your guts are telling you about what you guys need to do to get there, whether it's composition, whether it's things you can do to help your players, the existing ones, figure that out, because it seemed like the difference. Colorado had that consistency, and they didn't ever break.
Yeah, and again, that's a great question because, again, I think, I can look at roster composition, and I will look at roster composition. You're going to look at, what's coming in the pipeline and how does that fit, or, does it fit? You got to look at, the UFA situation, the RFA situation, with the cap. Those are things I can. I think that, the coaches are going to, be asking themselves, how can we be 10% better as well from a lot of different perspectives. Again, I guess the hardest part is for periods of time, long stretches of time, we saw, how this team, can go. And it's not taking anything away from Colorado because, they and actually it's more of, I guess, a compliment to them. They found a way to get us out of our structure. They found a way to get us out of, what makes us successful, what made us successful. That's what good players and good things do. Now, the flip side of it is those are the kind of things that the guys are asking themselves, how did this happen and how does it never happen again? I don't know that I had that same level of self-reflection in the conversations that we had with the players last year. I think, and again, it's as weird as it sounds, there's so many guys that were unprepared to talk today because they're like, we're not supposed to be talking today. We're supposed to be practicing today, or we're supposed to be doing something today. Or it's like, you ask them, they say, what are you doing now? Where you heading? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I didn't plan anything, you know. So those are the kind of things that I think catches you. And again, the playoffs happen fast. You know, like you're generally playing every other night, and you know, you talk about you know, the highs and the lows, and managing them. And you know, again, we'll probably have to learn, you know, from this very hard lesson about how to manage those emotions, you know, in a series.
Those emotions, I'm guessing, come from a sense of expectations that was developed and earned, I think, in the room. I can't remember a time in these years where I've heard as much, I'm the problem, it's me, I need to look inside, and sort of believe the conviction of it as strongly as we're hearing now. Why do you think that players are feeling and expressing that so strongly this time?
Well, I think some of the things that we've talked about, and it goes back to what Bones had always said, you know, at the beginning, you know, we're not here for excuses, we're here to find solutions. It's up in our, you know, in the room there, on the wall, on one of the walls. But I think that there's lots of these players, you know, you see their talents on the ice, you see them working, you see them in the gym. A lot of these players work on themselves as well during the season and during the off season. And, you know, like some of the things that I know have been conveyed to the players through the different people either that we provide or different things that we do is that don't take yourself off the hook. You know, like you know, like how can you be better? How can you up your performance? You know, and I think it's that level of maturity that you learn. Unfortunately, not you know, it's not given. You know, you have to learn is that you know, you have to look at yourself before you can look at anything else. You have to look at yourself, and I think our players, you know, like you say, if you're hearing that more, that's because they're putting work into themselves to understand that they ultimately are, you know, the masters of their own fate.
Mentioned cap considerations, and certainly you have those extensions kicking in. RFAs will get raises. You have UFAs that you'd like to sign.
Yeah.
Are buyouts an option for you this summer?
Well, I hope not. You know, I hope you know, again, we find ways to, you know, do the things that we need to do. But I think, you know, again, you know, a lot of you have been around the organization for a long period of time here, is that nothing's been off the table. You know, whether it's trading picks or trading, you know, different things or making hard buyouts, nothing's been off the table. But that's not saying anything is imminent. I'm just saying that, you know, as an organization, you know, we don't say, okay, you can't do that. You know, it's one of those things where I'm very, very fortunate, you know, to be part of an organization that doesn't shackle you when it comes to cap, contracts, budgets. You know, the hockey is what they're here to do, to win.
I know Bones feels it's a step forward this year, but parallels could be drawn between this year and last year, and the feeling, you know, with the players and the coach that you didn't not quite, like you fell short of where you thought that you could get to in presenting your game. And I think you could look back all the way to maybe 2019 Game 6, and there could be a pattern viewed of this team exiting the playoffs in somewhat underwhelming fashion compared to what you think that you're capable of. I think your thoughts on this would probably be more important than anyone in the organization. What's your assessment on why there seems to be a pattern over the years of this team exiting the playoffs in underwhelming fashion?
Well, you know, again, I think every year is different. So to try to make every season, you know, seem like a pattern, I think that's, you know, trying to connect A to C to F, you know, without, you know, going through the logical progression, because every season, you know, is different, and every situation has, you know, their own internal story. You know, like I said, I think I just alluded to it here before, like this season feels different for me than last season. You know, last season I could sense that, you know, again, some of the guys, you know, knew that, you know, we're probably undermanned now with, you know, those guys, you know, being injured, and that didn't mean they didn't give it their all, but, you know, like at the end of the day, it wasn't enough. This season here, I think that, you know, again, you know, you obviously run into a good team, but the players, again, need to grow. They need to understand that, you know, winning in this league, you know, is never a given, and making the playoffs in this league is never a given. trust me, like at training camp, next year, like, 110 points is totally, in the rearview mirror. You have to understand, and I think it just goes back to all the players saying we need to find a way to, to grow individually so that we can grow collectively. Again, I don't know that anybody loses, whether it's overwhelmingly, underwhelmingly, whatever, that you don't have that sense of disappointment. And, again, one of the greater disappointments was, losing in the conference finals. Like those, again, that's real, and emotions right now, again, maybe we're stupid to do, exits 48 hours after, something, this hard because, again, sometimes, people say things and they don't mean it, or sometimes they mean things but don't say it. And, but again, that's why there's open dialogue here with our group. And like I say, I'm sure we'll have other conversations with a lot of the players as we move forward.
I don't want to hit you over the head with a question without asking, without asking you one that, is reflective of the positives that you've accomplished this year. I don't know if you heard it, but I asked Jared Bednar about your organization, and he, it was asked him specifically about Bones, but he kind of went on a soliloquy about this organization and mentioned you by name and the job that you guys have done, how good of an organization is, the way it's run, how tough you guys are to play against. I just wanted you to reflect on maybe what you think you've shown the league this year and the reputation that you and your organization have built up for yourselves.
Well, again, I didn't hear those words, but I appreciate, him saying that because, again, coming from that organization, which is, has proven to win a Stanley Cup and obviously went through their first round exit last year and obviously, played as well as they did against us, this year, it means a lot. But, as an organization, all we've ever wanted to do is, obviously we want to win, like but we want to, certainly be a sense of pride, for the city of Winnipeg, for all our fans. It's important. Like it's, this city is unique. It's, obviously one of the smaller markets in the National Hockey League. But I kind of liken it to when and we've all kind of done it, when you're a kid or something, you drop a pebble, into the water. And sometimes when you got a big body of water, you drop the pebble in and there's waves and it just kind of goes off. Well, in our small market like that, you drop a pebble into the water and there's waves and it keeps coming back. Because that's the emotions. Like these people, these fans, they're emotional. They care, and that's standing here today. That's probably the hardest thing, honestly. It's like you can talk to the players. I feel for them, but again, the whiteout just never ceases to amaze you. And when you got people saying I couldn't put my finger on a map and tell you where Winnipeg is, but man, that building was, that was, off the hook. Like it says a lot about, our fan base, and I'm going to do my damnedest to, to try to keep pushing it.
Kevin, a quick one about Elias Salomonsson season that he had, and what's the plan for him for next season?
Yeah, so very fortunate for him. He ended up winning a championship there and over in Sweden, and from all accounts that we have there, he was a big part of that as well, and really he really did well. We when we signed him, we talked it over with his representatives that we all felt that it would be an important year for him to go back and to play and develop, and that he was going to have a big role, and that did happen, so it was great. So we're looking forward to him coming over. Obviously he'll be here in development camp, and and then go from here. So where he fits in the whole scheme of things, that'll be up to him, obviously. But he's got good pro experience over there, and the development path is has been a good one.
How would you describe Brad Lambert's development, and also too, on the flip side, the decision that Rutger McGroarty made to go back to school?
Yeah, so I can talk about Rutger. First, obviously, I got a chance to, I guess the last game I saw him play, I went to St. Louis there and watched him play in the regionals, and obviously had a brief conversation with him, after, and I just said to him, I said, go win your championship. Like, go be the leader that you are. Go be the player that you are. Don't worry about, any of these, anything like that. I said, I'm here to cheer you on. I'm not here to, talk contract or what might happen in 2 weeks or whatever. And he was real appreciative of that. And, so when we, at the end of the season, as an organization, we've always felt that it's important that when you're taking a player out of school and they're leaving, they're leaving school on the table and that kind of development, that they make that decision. So we made it very open to him from the onset that we're more than willing to sign him, more than willing to to turn him pro. But in the same token, we need him to make that decision for what he feels was best for his development. And we had great conversations with his agent there in the end, and I talked to him as well after. And again, so it's a good thing. I think for a player like Rutger, not unlike what happened with Scheif, I think, back when we sent him the second year back to juniors. These guys want to be part of make a difference, to be that leader. And I think, Rutger is looking even for more of a bigger role where he can, help lead a team, to that kind of greatness and help his development there. With Brad and Chibi, it was awesome to get a chance to, I wish I could have been there when Mo told them that, they were getting called up, because I heard that the team was pretty fired up and pretty elated for them. And then to see, again, the impact. The even more important thing was, several of our guys in the exits today talked about them. We didn't ask about them. They talked about, some of those guys. And I'm talking about guys that are invested, in the long-term success of the Jets. And they were asking about Chibi, and they're asking about Brad. They're asking about Salomonsson. Obviously Rutger, they know Rutger, and they ask about them. Those kind of things really show to me that, again, these players, they're invested in our group in the long term. But they both had great years, and Brad's development specifically, again, came leaps and bounds. Chibi, coming over from Russia, obviously is a different experience. But again, to have both those guys have success in their first NHL game was very, very important. Thanks very much. Appreciate. I know we'll chat again at different points in time, but I do appreciate everyone's professionalism this year, and the job that you guys have to do. And again, I thank you all for that.